Happy Halloween. It's October's come to an end, and I watched a ton of stuff this month. A ton of great new stuff came out, some not so great new stuff came out. Went back and watched some old stuff. So let's dive in. One Battle After Another. I rewatched One Battle After Another, went with my dad, and it's just as great on the second watch. I mean, this is undoubtedly my favorite film of the year. I might end up being like the film of the decade, I don't even know, but it's, you know, the dark humor of it and the performances, you know, the characters like Sean Penn and Benicio del Toro and Leo and Chase Infinity and all these wonderful actors are so great in it, and, you know, it takes place in completely a world of its own. It's like its own little dystopian world, but it reflects the dystopian world we live in. It's not directly commenting on our world or the current state of things, but it's reflecting it. It's reflecting the feelings of it and the, you know, the rise of authoritarianism and the paranoia, and it reflects the climate in the way that like the great films of the 70s like Serpico and Chinatown reflected, you know, the anti-establishment feelings and the kind of post-Watergate, post-Nixon paranoia. It's like one of them for today's climate, you know? And it's, I think it's an absolute masterpiece. Because it's fun, too. It's like, it is all that stuff, but it's also just a fun ride, and a great action movie, and a great comedy. And it is a crying shame that no one's watching it. Like, it's being praised as this, like, film of the generation, and almost no one's bothering to go and experience this masterpiece on a big screen. Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. This is, I was kind of still on a Will Ferrell kick at the end of last month. I was watching, like, Old School and, a couple old Will Ferrell films, and Talladega Nights is so much fun. It's like, so it basically is like the F1 movie from earlier this year, but with a really absurdist sense of humor. Like, it's Adam McKay and Will Ferrell were genuinely into NASCAR, so they get all that stuff relatively accurate, and you know, they have real affection for it. They're not like making fun of it, but within that they have so much fun with just the ridiculousness, you know, the fact that like Ricky's grace before dinner, like his prayer has a corporate sponsor. He has to like mention Powerade before he says grace. Or all the stuff with Cal, his best friend who like steals his wife and his house and his job and can't understand why Ricky doesn't like him anymore. It's a really funny movie. So many fun, like the bit where he thinks he's paralyzed, and to prove it, it jams a knife in his knee. You know, there's classic. Peacemaker Season 2. I was waiting weeks and weeks because James Gunn sent out 5 episodes of the 8th for people to review. So I'd raced through 5 episodes in one sitting, and then I had to wait 5 weeks to see what happened next. And I didn't see it coming that it was a Nazi universe. I didn't watching the first 5. You know, people were saying like there must be something up with this utopian world he's come to. And I was like, those fan theories are incorrect. It is a utopia. And then episode 6, it's like, oh wait, something is up. And then they're all making fun of Peacemaker for how did he not see it? It was so obvious. And then like I didn't see it. That was a great twist though. I couldn't believe they really committed to it. They committed to like having like a legion of white supremacists chase down Adebayo, and they have like a big mural of Hitler up at Argus, and they have an American flag where the stars should be as a swastika. You know, this is a big budget superhero property. That's like obviously James Gunn's the studio head, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. But David Zaslav could have said, "Dude, I don't know about this." But then it was kind of disappointing how quickly because once they discover that, they're just like, right, let's get the hell out of here, and they just go back through the portal, and that's it. Kind of seemed like you could have done something to escalate that plot a bit. Maybe Adebayo does get captured and they have to go and save her, or somehow the portal back doesn't work, or whatever it is, because it just felt like a bit too easy that it's like, oh shit, it's Nazi world, let's go. Now we're back at home. And the finale, I think James Gunn had overhyped it, because he said it was like the most incredible thing ever, and like it was a good finale. It set everything up for the future. It set up future things for DC, and it put all the 11th Street kids in a good place where they've set up what's it called? I can't remember what it's called, but they've set up like a spy agency so they can just be legitimately good, fighting for justice. And it's a great cliffhanger where they've left Peacemaker. But the way James Gunn had hyped it up made it seem like the finale was going to bring the second coming of Jesus Christ or something. So I think he needs to calm down with hyping shit up. Obviously he wants people to watch it, but, you know, manage expectations. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I fucking love this movie. I could watch it a million times, never get bored of it. Because I just love imbibing the 60s LA aesthetic. The way, you know, they dressed up all the shop fronts and they got all these classic cars. And there's just so many shots where it's just Brad Pitt cruising around. And you just feel like you're there, you know? And you're just like hanging out in that vision of 60s LA, you know? And on top of that, it's a really, really funny movie and a really interesting look at like the life of an actor. Like even when you're a big star, you're not guaranteed to last in the business. And, you know, it's through the lens of this TV cowboy struggling to kind of make the transition to film. It's a great film, such a departure for Tarantino, but still so much in his voice. Sketch. This was, I was going, near the beginning of the month, I went off on a stag do for a few days, and the flight was like, we had to leave at like 2 in the morning, and I'm like a night owl, so there was no way I was going to get to sleep before 2 o'clock, so I was like, I'll just stay up. It was a horrible idea, it ended up being, but I'll stay up all night. And so while I was kicking it, waiting until 2 o'clock, I decided to go back and watch a couple of films I'd missed in the cinema. Sketch was one of them, which is a delightful little kind of like kids movie where this little girl's drawings come to life. She drops her notebook in a magical pond, and it brings her sketches of monsters and demons to life. And, you know, as fun as all the effects are, and it becomes this kind of Goonies thing where the kids band together to save the day. It also, you know, she's lost her mom, and she did all these dark, twisted drawings of monsters in response to her grief, and that's like reflecting how she feels on the inside. She feels very dark and dull and grim. And to save the day, they need the drawings she did before her mom died that were all happy and lovely and spread optimism and joy. So it had that great message channeled through this crazy premise, and it was just a ton of fun. Dangerous Animals. This was the next one on the double bill, which couldn't have been less like Sketch. You know, Sketch was a delightful little family-friendly romp, and Dangerous Animals is about a serial killer who feeds women to sharks for fun. But this was great too. It had a couple of kind of contrivances that you see in these kind of thrillers where they, you know, it stretches your suspension of disbelief a bit too much in some places, or there's like, you know, a bit where she's trapped on this boat and she manages to knock the guy out, and then she runs away before making sure he's dead. Like, just stab him in the face repeatedly. If you leave him, he's gonna come to and grab you. Have you never seen one of these films before? But Jai Courtney, who I don't usually rate as an actor, I didn't like him as John McClane's son. I thought he completely lacked, you know, charisma in that role, certainly to be the John McClane II. And, you know, he wasn't that great in Suicide Squad. I hated him in Terminator as, I think he was Kyle Reese, and the one where Emilia Clarke was Sarah Connor. So, you know, I've never really rated him as an actor, but he was fantastic in this. He was perfect for this guy, where he's like sadistic and insane and a murderer, but also like weirdly charismatic, like the way he gets people onto his boat to go and ostensibly for like a tour of the shark infested waters, and go cage diving. You believe that they are charmed by him, and then you also believe when he takes a sinister turn and locks them on the boat and feeds them to the sharks and films it, you believe that too. Like, he was great in it. The Smashing Machine. This is, you know, Dwayne Johnson's bid for an Oscar, and it seems to have come and went, and he's not going to get even the nomination probably. And I did a video about this you can check out, but you know, he was good. It was a promising start to a more serious acting career, but it wasn't like the best performance of the year. He slips in and out of it, sometimes in and out of character, and sometimes just reverts back to being The Rock. The prosthetics do a lot of heavy lifting in a lot of scenes. And Emily Blunt, you know, great actor, but I didn't buy her in that role, really, as his girlfriend. But I did love their relationship. They have great chemistry. I think they're friends in real life, and so they were able to there was already kind of a familiarity between them, so they were able to just build on that. And they did a really good job of making you believe this relationship. And I didn't really care that much about any of the MMA stuff, but I was really invested in this relationship. And his kind of grapple with addiction and trying to get sober, and the film kind of glosses over it a bit, but I thought all that stuff was really interesting, and Dwayne committed to it, and so it's worth checking out if you're interested in seeing Dwayne Johnson do a more serious role. It's a good film, it's just not a great film. Chad Powers is the new Glenn Powell show, which I reviewed it for Screen Rant if you want to read that. I think the opening scene is amazing, where you see how this football player became disgraced and ruined his career, and he like drops the ball on like the 1 yard line or whatever, and like right before where you're supposed to drop it for a goal, because you heard everyone cheering and thought I must be there, and just dropped it and like literally dropped the ball. And then there's this little kid in a wheelchair saying, you know, you're still my favorite player, and then this guy comes up to him and he punches the guy, and then the guy falls onto the kid in the wheelchair. That was really funny, and I was like, this is going to be a good show. And then the rest of the show hasn't really lived up to that opening. It's not taking the risks that punching a guy into a kid in a wheelchair did, you know? Because at that point it seemed to be like they're going for like, this is the new Eastbound and Down, this guy's Kenny Powers. But then after that cold open, he just becomes like charming Glenn Powell guy. And none of the other, you know, he's a great character, and the fact that he puts on this disguise and creates this fictional, you know, so he can become a walk-on player in some college football team, it's a great premise, and he's a great character, but none of the other characters are developed enough. I mean, it's still only season 1, you know, you're gonna give TV shows a kind of a chance to grow and find their feet and find their voice, but I'm not overly impressed so far. How are you? It's Alan, brackets Partridge. This was really fucking funny. This was like maybe the best Partridge has been in years, where it's like Alan doing a deep dive on mental health, and like the worst person in the world to handle a serious subject matter. And you know, parts of it are he's interviewing people and he's doing things for the show, and then half of it is like it's just Alan living his life, and you know, he's got Lynn there, and they still have, like, after all these years, their dynamic is just as sharp as it always was. And I just love seeing Alan in his element, in his real life, you know, like in I'm Alan Partridge. And this is like half something like This Time or Knowing Me, Knowing You, where you see Alan in broadcaster mode, and the other half is just Alan in his daily life. And it was really, really funny stuff. Wedding Crashers. I rewatched Wedding Crashers, and you know, it's got kind of a chauvinistic edge to it, which is a lot of comedies of the 2000s had, but it has a charm and it has a sweetness. And you know, the friendship between Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn is really sweet, and it starts off as these two guys who go to weddings and lie to women and get laid, but it becomes a love story. And there's another great Will Ferrell role where he plays Chaz Reinhold. He shows up in one scene and runs away with the whole movie. This was a letdown. This is another one I did a video about, and I was excited for it because you never see a sports movie mixed in with horror, and it's an interesting concept to do a psychological thriller about how far an athlete will push themselves and push their body and mind. And Marlon Wayans as a villain was a great idea. I couldn't wait to see that. And you know, Jordan Peele putting his name all over it, thinking this must be good. And it was fucking kind of shitty, to be honest with you. It was, you know, it plays like a music video. Or a trailer. It's like fast cuts and just like imagery, you know, but not. It never slows down to tell a story. It's all just like bombarding you with stimuli, you know, and it didn't work. You know, I didn't get to know this character enough to care what happened to him. And the ending was just like, hey, how can we shock people? Well, let's do the most shocking thing we can do, apropos of nothing, pay off nothing that was earned. Licorice Pizza. After one battle after another, I was all up on Paul Thomas Anderson, so I went back and rewatched Licorice Pizza, his last film, which I adored, and I hadn't seen in a while. And you know, it was kind of controversial because the love story is between a 15-year-old boy and a 25-year-old woman, but it's an interesting dynamic because he's like an entrepreneur and has a career, and he's a kid, and she's like an adult and she's aimless and immature. Like, she's more immature than him in some respects, and he's more immature than her in other respects, and that becomes a point of contention between them, where they like each other, they like hanging out together, but they start to get on each other's nerves a bit. And I just forgot how much I fucking love watching those two. You know, Cooper Hoffman and Alana Haim have such great chemistry, you kind of forget that it's inappropriate how big of an age gap they have. And you have to bear in mind, he pursues her, she keeps telling him, I'm too old for you, it's, you know. And then for the most part, it's not really a romance. There's romantic elements, but it's a friendship mostly, because she's like, it's weird, you're too young, I can't go out with you, but I kind of like you as well, like I like you as a person. So this kind of just uneasy friendship begins. I think this would make a great double bill with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and you see LA in the late 60s, in 1969. And then you watch Licorice Pizza, it picks up in LA in 1971 or something, 1973 maybe. So it picks up right after, and they both have this kind of loose hangout quality where neither of them are too focused on a plot. It's more just about hanging out with these characters. I think that'd make a perfect double feature. Meet the Parents. This is a classic, one of my old childhood favorites. It's like a masterpiece of just like cringe comedy and character comedy, and that relationship between Ben Stiller and Robert De Niro is like where it's funny, but also it's like nice to see them kind of warm up to each other over the course of the film. The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, Season 3. I finished watching this. I was reviewing it week by week on Screen Rant, if you want to go back and read them. And ultimately it was a letdown. There was some good stuff in this season. There was a great battle sequence, a fun scene on a train where Daryl jumps onto a train and kills all the guys on the train, and the train is being pulled by zombies. There's a whole scene with like a zombie puppet show performing for the so-called King of Spain, and they free the zombies of their strings and they go and literally eat the rich. You know, that was a fun little bit of satire. But the season kept Daryl and Carol separate for so long, which is like what the point of bringing her in was, because they have great chemistry, and that was what made season 2 better than season 1 in my opinion. So what was the point of bringing her in if you're just going to keep them separate? She's back at the ranch while he's off on adventures, and it became so repetitive. Every episode with Daryl would find a new community that needs help, and he would help them. And it was like rinse and repeat every fucking episode. It started to become like almost like a joke. It's like, come on, can't anyone else help these people? And the end, you know, the finale it only became a finale. It only became a culmination of the season and a climax in the last like 10 minutes, and by then it was kind of like too little too late. The Master, my Paul Thomas Anderson kick brought me back to The Master, which I fucking love. The Master, I feel like it's unappreciated. I think it's almost maybe as great as There Will Be Blood, because it's a really interesting, really kind of accurate examination of how cults work, how cults, the kind of people cults target, and how it gets them to be loyal and stay loyal. And the relationship between Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman is so compelling. That Joaquin Phoenix is this young, aimless guy, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is basically, what's his name? Scientology man. L. Ron Hubbard. Like, manipulating him. And as Joaquin Phoenix starts to realize he's being manipulated, it becomes this interesting kind of back and forth. I fucking love it. It's a fantastic movie. Gen V Season 2. Gen V's been back. And I feel like The Boys is just kind of becoming what it used to spoof. Now it's just a superhero universe. The only thing separating it from Marvel now is swear words and nudity and violence. I mean, graphic, bloody violence. Obviously, Marvel has violence. I still really love this ensemble. I love these characters. I love Marie and Emma especially. I think Emma's my favorite character. She's very funny and witty, but also like very sweet and endearing, and she's just looking for love, and she keeps having bad luck with guys. But I thought it was a good twist. The whole Thomas Godolkin twist was, it was a good twist, but it happened too late. It happened too late to really build up Thomas Godolkin as the big bad before Marie kills him. And Ethan Slater doesn't have the charisma or the screen presence that Hamish Linklater had. He was the best part of the season. I was loving him as Cypher. And then it was interesting to find out spoiler alert, that he's just like a meat puppet. But at the same time, I liked having him around. I don't want him gone. But the finale seems to set up that these Gen V characters are going to have a big part in The Boys Season 5, and they're going to kind of just join The Boys. They literally say, let's have a merger of the teams. Like, they're basically teasing it's going to be a crossover event. So I'm excited for that. The Battle of Algiers. This was, I'd heard this was like a big influence on Andor and One Battle After Another. And in One Battle After Another, Leo actually is watching the Battle of Algiers when he gets the call that Stephen Lockjaw's coming to his house. And he's stoned and he's listening, he's on the phone. Oh, fuck. I really like Battle of Algiers. I thought it was really beautifully shot. It felt very real, very almost like documentary-like. You're like a fly on the wall watching this horrendous warfare play out. Incredible crowd scenes, which I'm sure were not easy to orchestrate. It was really masterfully done. Phantom Thread. When I ranked Paul Thomas Anderson's films, I ranked this one really low. Maybe second to last, maybe even last. I think that was Magnolia. But I'd only ever seen it once. And so I thought I owe it to Paul to rewatch this. And maybe now that I'm like sucking his dick because I love One Battle After Another so much, maybe I'll appreciate Phantom Thread more. And I did. I can appreciate it for what it is. It probably still is on the lower end in terms of my favorites of his, or one I'd be inclined to go back and watch again. That's only because it's so hard to watch these toxic couple who kind of love each other but also hate each other. But it's funny as well. It's like darkly funny. Like the fact that she poisons him is hilarious, in a fucked up way. It's gorgeously shot. It kind of brings like 60s London to life with these really almost like Barry Lyndon-esque like shots that look like oil paintings, especially in that party scene when after the party's died down and there's balloons all over the dance floor and they just have this quiet moment together. It's fucking beautiful. 21 Jump Street. I rewatched I actually did 21 and 22 back to back, and they're so much fun. Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum have such funny, great chemistry together. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are great like comedy directors. There's almost like an Edgar Wright-ness to how this plays out visually, and in terms of like match cuts and like sight gags, or like putting laughs and jokes in the actual filmmaking. And like playing with your expectations, like when they graduate from the police academy and the camera swoops in on them, and you can hear like police sirens and explosions, and they're saying like, you're ready for a lifetime of being badass motherfuckers taking down bad guys. And then it's smash cuts to they're just like riding bicycles around the park and stopping kids from feeding the ducks, and it's like that's a funny joke on the page, but then you dress it up as a subversion of what happens in an action movie. In the filmmaking, it becomes so much funnier, and the film is full of stuff like that. 22 Jump Street, the sequel. I love how meta these ones are as well. Like that kind of humor is overdone now, and it usually is covers up for like lazy writing. Like Red Notice is a perfect example, where they just have Ryan Reynolds point out all the cliches they're doing and the tropes they're doing. It's like, that doesn't make this any cleverer. That just makes this a shitty action movie that knows it's The action movie. But in 21 Jump Street, where they talk about they're reviving the Jump Street program because the guys in charge have run out of ideas, so they just rehash old shit from the past. And it's like in universe, that's about the program of sending people undercover into high schools. But we know that they're talking about rebooting a TV show no one remembers. And then in 22, they joke about doing sequels where it's like, just do the same shit again. No one expected the Jump Street reboot to do as well as it did, and now they just want to do the same thing all over again and make the same amount of money. And there's like a bit where like the picture they have of the drug dealer, he's got like a tattoo on his arm, and they find a guy with a tattoo on his arm, and they want to see the tattoo and get a good look at it. And the tattoo is literally a red herring. It's like his high school football team, the Plainview Red Herrings. It's like stuff like that, so clever. And you know, obviously Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum, their dynamic continues to be just carry the films and they're like perfectly matched actors. And you know, Channing Tatum said in an interview recently the reason they haven't done 23 Jump Street is because some greedy fucking producer wants too high a fee. And it's like, fuck that guy. One Battle After Another. I went to watch One Battle After Another again. I'm trying to encourage everyone I know to go and watch this fucking thing. And the only people who've come with me have been my dad was on my second viewing, and on my third I went with my sister, and they've both loved it. Everyone would love it, but no one's going to watch the fucking thing. But she's normally highly critical of long films. If a film is pushing 3 hours, she'll come out of it and be like, that could have been cut, that went on for too long. And but after this one, she's like, this one actually did need to be that long. I feel like it didn't feel 3 hours and you couldn't have cut anything out of it. And it's true, it flies by, and it's nothing is out of place, nothing is indulgent. I'll have plenty to say about One Battle After Another when I do my top 10 at the end of the year, and it is proudly placed in the top spot. The Dark Knight. I was hanging out with my buddies Luke and Nick, and The Dark Knight came on TV, on television, and we watched it, and ads and all. And ITV really go buck wild with the ads when they show films. So we watched it 10 minutes at a time, which kind of ruined the momentum, but it's just a masterpiece. It's Heat, but in Gotham City instead of Los Angeles. And it's, you know, Heath Ledger's Joker is unbelievably iconic and fully deserving of an Oscar, even though he was playing a comic book supervillain in a mesmerizing screen presence. And it's just an absolute, it's far and away my favorite Christopher Nolan film, far and away the best Batman film. I loved The Batman, and I loved the Tim Burton original 89 one, but it's The Dark Knight is the ultimate Batman movie. Divorce American Style. This is an old comedy from the 60s. Dick Van Dyke and Debbie Reynolds are getting they're married, but they're always at each other's throats, they're always bickering, and they finally decide to get a divorce. And it's interesting to see. It would play out very differently today, but in the 60s it was like a taboo to get a divorce. It was like a black mark on the family. Now it's like normalized, as it should be, because it's hard to make a marriage work. It should be okay to say, look, we tried this thing and it's not working anymore. But back then it was like the worst thing that could happen is a couple gets divorced. But they were so funny in it. Like, it was interesting to see Dick Van Dyke. You'd only see in such a wholesome light, you know, in Mary Poppins or Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or even in the Dick Van Dyke Show. He's always like a good guy. So it was interesting to see him play a guy who hates his wife and is constantly, because that never happened with Mary Tyler Moore in the Dick Van Dyke Show. They were always like very loving, and it was kind of more us versus the world than us versus each other. So it's interesting to see Dick Van Dyke in an on-screen couple where it is us versus each other. It is constant, bitter, resentful arguments. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought it was like, you know, it wasn't directed by Mike Nichols, but it felt very much like one of his great satirical comedy films from that era. Intruder. We lost the great Scott Spiegel, and this was his film. I hadn't seen it, but this was like his crowning achievement. And I thought it was great. It's about like the after-hours crew at a supermarket getting picked off by a maniac. That was a great little slasher film. It doesn't do much to, you know, it doesn't reinvent the wheel. It doesn't reinvent the formula, but it's a really great example of the formula. It's got a lot of humor in it, but it's also genuinely scary, and it's just like old school slasher. It's a lot of fun. Frankenstein. This is Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I got to see an early screening of it at my cinema. They did it was playing at the London Film Festival, and for some reason they let that screening play at other cinemas around the country. So it opened with Guillermo del Toro telling people to go to like an exhibit on Regent Street or some fucking thing in London and look at the costumes and the influences and So they didn't even edit it for non-Londoners. But it was an interesting film. It's gorgeously shot, and it's I mean, as anything Guillermo del Toro does is. And the performances are great. Oscar Isaac and Mia Goth was fantastic as a character who normally is sidelined in Frankenstein films as Elizabeth. And Jacob Elordi's the fucking MVP of the film as the monster. He's incredible. He's like deeply sympathetic and human, but not too human because he is a creature. He is an unholy creation. And the first half of the film is told from Victor Frankenstein's perspective. The second half is told from the creature's perspective. And that was by far my favorite part, even though, I did like the stuff with Victor and seeing his childhood and his relationship with his parents and how, like, losing his mom at an early age is what made him obsessed with, like, cheating death and bringing the dead back to life because he didn't want her to be dead. He wanted to make her alive again. And that was all very interesting. But just seeing the creature kind of learn about humanity, where he stays at this family's house and he's watching them through the walls and he's learning how humans behave and stuff, and that was really interesting. The only thing is, and I did a video about it, and that's gotten a lot more traction than my reviews normally do. There's been a lot of angry people in the comments saying I'm patently wrong in saying that I think it's a bit too slow paced. They said it's paced perfectly. And, it's an opinion. Everyone's got one. And, who's to say mine is right, or who's to say theirs is right? I'm to say mine is right. But I suppose it depends what you want. If you want a faster movie, maybe you won't like it too much. But if you don't mind if you don't mind it taking its time, it's a beautiful film. The Running Man, the Arnold Schwarzenegger one. I watched this years ago. I watched it when I was a teenager, and it popped up on Netflix. And I'm looking forward to Edgar Wright's new one. It's going to be more faithful. I think this one wasn't even really based on The Running Man. I think it was like a remake of like a French film, and they just slapped the name Running Man on it because people knew the book by Richard Bachman / Stephen King. But it's shit. It's fucking shit. I hated every second of it. I remember kind of enjoying it when I was a kid, but now I'm watching it going, this is just fucking shit. It's stupid. The plot is stupid. Arnold he's phoning it in. Everything's forced. The love story is forced. Making the villain scary is forced because they all look so ridiculous in those gold suits. I really, really didn't enjoy it. Edgar Wright's version is already better than this. Just by not being this, it's already better. Inherent Vice. I rewatched Inherent Vice. There's another one I ranked on the lower end of the PTA movies. I want to reevaluate. I should watch Magnolia as well, because I want to reevaluate my relationship with his films. Because I think maybe I've judged some of these too harshly. Certainly Phantom Thread, I had judged too harshly. And I think this too. I mean, it goes on a bit too long. The plot is maybe a bit too complicated, but that's kind of par for the course with Pynchon. There's a great cast. Like, there's so many funny little kind of supporting roles played by these legends. Owen Wilson or Martin Short is really great in this. And it's an interesting kind of snapshot of, the 70s, and it's kind of like a stoner noir in the vein of The Big Lebowski, and it's fun to see Joaquin Phoenix in that role of the dope-smoking private eye who's in way over his head. So I liked Inherent Vice a lot more this time around than when it came out. I still don't think it's one of his best, because it's, as I was saying, when you watch one battle after another and you think, you couldn't take a second out of this is perfect. And same with There Will Be Blood, Punch Drunk Love. But with Inherent Vice, it feels a bit flabby. It feels like maybe we could have trimmed this down a bit. Vigilante. I fucking loved this. This was awesome. It's like kind of like Death Wish, but with Robert Forster. Robert Forster is this husband and father who his family's attacked, and his wife is horribly injured, and his son is killed, his young son is killed. And then the courts let the guy off, and obviously Robert Forster's pissed off, so he takes the law into his own hands and teams up with this like vigilante squad to track the guy down. I thought it was amazing. It's like, first of all, the direction of it is it's like cinematic. It's like the way there's like a very 80s score with a lot of synths, and that creates a great atmosphere, and the performances of like Fred Williamson has this like great gravitas and screen presence, and Robert Forster is like maybe not as convincingly tough as Charles Bronson, but a million times better dramatic actor than Charles Bronson. So you really believe this pain he's going through, and that the only way he can channel it is by killing this succession of guys from this street gang that attacked his house. And it's great to just see old school action, like if you're doing a car chase, you actually have cars driving on a road. If you're doing a foot chase across rooftops, you're actually putting stuntmen in precarious situations on real rooftops. There's no CGI volume bullshit going on. I thought it was fantastic. I think it should be like an action movie classic, but I'd never even heard of it till recently. Super 8, the old J.J. Abrams film. I think he should do more original stuff, because this is like maybe his best film. The 2009 Star Trek I loved, actually. So maybe that's his best film. But this is second, certainly. And it's like the only original film he's done that wasn't a Star Trek or a Star Wars or a Mission Impossible. And the actual, it's kind of two things. It's a movie about government conspiracy, cover-up of an alien visitor. And it's a movie about a bunch of kids trying to make their own zombie film on Super 8 camera. And the government conspiracy alien storyline is very generic and kind of, you've seen it before. But the story of the kids making the movie is very, very personal. I think he was channeling something from his childhood, something very real and close to him. And I related to it. Like, I used to make little movies with my friends, and it was exactly like that. Except we had digital cameras, because I'm not a million years old, like J.J. Abrams. Well, I suppose in my early childhood, it was camcorders on tape, and then we graduated to digital. But yeah, I think JJ needs to tap into personal stuff more often, rather than giving us Star Wars Episode 25, you know? I Love Lucy. I've never seen I Love Lucy. I think it's a bit too old to be, you know, there's a lot of 90s sitcoms that get replayed on, or even 80s that get replayed on British TV. I Love Lucy's from the 50s. I think that might be it too. But I Love Lucy kind of created the sitcom as we know it. It kind of laid out, you know, like the Fawlty Towers thing of you set up an elaborate lie and then you have to stick to it. That began with I Love Lucy. And it was groundbreaking in that the woman is the funny one. Like, it's not, you know, you see, even to this day, you see sitcoms where the husband is the wacky guy getting into crazy antics, and the wife is standing on the sidelines, you know, rolling her eyes, folding laundry. And this was, Lucy is the wacky comedic one, and Ricky is the straight man, you know? And Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz are so fucking funny. And obviously the chemistry rings true because they were actually a couple. So really great show. I mean, you can see why it's such a classic and why to this day is still endures. And especially for, like, at the same time the Honeymooners was joking about domestic violence, you know? I Love Lucy was there empowering women and giving the wife agency and personality that you still struggle to see to this day. The Chair Company is Tim Robinson's new show on HBO, and I'm loving it so much. It's like a perfect marriage of cringe comedy and like a surreal mystery. It kind of is like, and I Think You Should Leave sketch that doesn't have to end. It's like a season of I Think You Should Leave where the first sketch never had to end. It just continued for the rest of the series, if that makes sense. It like plays into his very unique comedic talents and shit, like the kind of thing that only he can do. And it's an actually engaging plot. Like, you want to know what's going on with this Chair Company. Like, it's like a conspiracy, you know, and he's the everyman trying to uncover it. It's like a Parallax View conspiracy, except instead of Warren Beatty, it's Tim Robinson, you know. High School Musical. I'm doing a video about the High School Musical trilogy, and I rewatched all three of them. Because I think they're great. I mean, I watched them when they were on Disney Channel when I was a kid, me and my sister, and loved them. And they have a charm. They have like an infectious... I don't think you could watch High School Musical ironically. I think even if you tried to, you get swept up in the story and these lovable characters. And the music, those musical numbers are so good. They're so catchy. High School Musical 2, a rare sequel that surpasses the original. This is like The Godfather Part 2. Or, you know, Empire Strikes Back. It's the first one, but better. It's you know, they all go and work at a country club over the summer, and they, like, Troy takes like a bit of a villainous turn in this one, and it's interesting to see. He goes down this dark path. He's promised these riches. He's promised the college basketball team and the, you know, scholarship at the uni he wants to go to, but it's at the expense of his friendships and his relationship with Gabriella. And it's this interesting little character study through this glitzy musical, you know, kind of great. Good Fortune. I really liked this. I think a lot of people have been very cynical and saying, like, I don't need a lecture on poverty by the richest men in Hollywood, and I get that, you know. It is basically saying, come and spend some of your hard-earned disposable income, of which you have very little, on this movie about how shitty the economy is. But at least they're acknowledging it. At least, you know, it's at least it's not out of touch. You know, it lays, especially through the Keanu Reeves character, who's so naive because he's only just become human and he's like learning how the world works. He can like lay it out in the simplest, plainest terms, where he gets a job as a dishwasher and he gets his first check. He's all excited, like, my first check. And then he's saying to his mate Felipe, who he works with, like, oh no, Felipe, there's something wrong with my check. There's not enough money. And he's saying, like, you know, well, there's a big number here and then it gets smaller here. And he's going like, yeah, no, that's for Social Security and it goes to the government, the federal government. He's like, oh, I thought this would be enough to live on and maybe some extra for fun stuff. And that's all people want. Like, no one wants necessarily caviar and a ginormous mansion and, you know, a £3,000 haircut. People just want enough to live on comfortably, enough to pay the bills, and a bit extra so they can go and do fun things with their friends and, you know, go on holidays maybe. That's literally all anyone's asking for. And the 1% are like, no, because I want to turn my 117 billion into 118 billion. After the hunt, I really didn't like this. It's, you know, first of all, it's years too late to be a timely Me Too drama, you know? This should have been 5 years ago minimum, if you want to strike while the iron's hot and while people are talking about this stuff. And it takes such a boomer approach to it, where it's like, that moment where Julia Roberts says to Io Debris, which Io says, I'm not comfortable having this conversation, and Julia Roberts goes, not everything is supposed to make you comfortable. And it's like, that's a cool moment, that's actually kind of chilling, the way Julia Roberts delivers it. But that encapsulates the sentiment of the movie, which is, fuck you snowflakes, fuck your safe spaces, and well, it's like, no, if someone's been raped, they have a right to feel safe, you know? And then they're like, oh god, when did it become the preeminent cardinal sin to offend someone? It's like, well no, the preeminent cardinal sin is to violate someone's body and their human rights. It's not about offending someone. So, I don't know, I feel like Sorry Baby was like a month ago, and that was a million times better exploration of the exact same subject matter. It's another one where a faculty member assaults a student, and, you know, you see the student grappling with that trauma, but it's so much more sympathetic to survivors of assault and to just the time it takes and the pain it takes to live with that trauma. Whereas After the Hunt even touches on the idea that people will lie about having been assaulted to get ahead, and it's insane, you know. And even putting all that aside, it's just bad storytelling. It's like there's a whole story of Julia Roberts has this illness that is purely a movie illness. It's not explained at all, and it just is there to add some drama to a scene if they can't figure out what else to do. It's like, oh well, let's just give her some stomach pains and have her keel over. It's fucking stupid. I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. I'd seen I Think You Should Leave, a lot of the individual sketches on YouTube, but I'd never actually watched the show. And I was actually surprised to find that he's only in like half the sketches. But the best ones are the ones with him in. So when a new sketch would begin and it's like they're introducing someone onto a stage or something, I'm like, please be Tim Robinson. But it's so good. I love watching sketch shows with like a singular voice, you know, like Chappelle's show, Key and Peele, where it's like one comedic mind or a couple of comedic minds working in tandem with a very specific point of view of the world. And this is a perfect example where it's just like taking these mundane everyday situations and ramping up the absurdity and the weirdness, and almost being like, I mean, sometimes the comedy veers into like horror. It gets so surreal and creepy, but you know, in a great way. South Park season 27 and now 28, because they moved to play into the 6-7 meme joke. They jumped from season 27 episode 5 to season 28 episode 1, so they would avoid the numbers 7 and 6 and 7, and that was clever. But they've settled into a routine now. They started off doing an episode every 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, fine, whatever. But now they're doing one episode every 3 weeks, and that's fucking mental. I mean, the whole point of doing it that fast is to comment on things as they're in the headlines. But now, if they start writing something and it's not on for 3 weeks, it's not in the headlines anymore. But it's, you know, I feel like the Trump gag, the Trump Saddam Hussein fucking Satan gag was great when it started, and that was a great idea, and it put South Park back on the cultural map. But now they've run it into the ground. And it's like, all right, we get it. Donald Trump is fucking Satan. Very funny. Because there's so much shit this administration's doing to make fun of. And if you get into a story about he's having a baby with Satan and he's trying to get it aborted, and like none of that has anything to do with what he's actually doing. And what he's actually doing is fucked up. So why don't you comment on that? If the worst thing he was doing was having a baby with Satan, that would be a step up. The Inbetweeners movie. When the Inbetweeners kind of reboot was announced, I wrote a big long list of ranking every Inbetweeners episode and all the movies, or both, there's 2. And so I went back and rewatched the first movie, which, because I'd just been on this stag do, you know, that was like my first ever lads holiday. I've never been on like a proper lads holiday before. And so I was watching this film in a whole new light. It's like the perfect cinematic portrait of a British lads holiday. And there were so many more things I kind of related to and could be. I think this is one of the best like TV to film adaptations, because like sending them to Malia, because a lot of times it just feels like a long episode. The Entourage movie felt like a long episode of Entourage, but the Inbetweeners movie feels worthy of the big screen. It feels more cinematic because you take them to Malia and they're in these very exotic locales all of a sudden rather than the dull suburbs of London. And you have these more fleshed out emotional arcs where Simon is struggling to get over his breakup with Carly, and he has a whole falling out with Jay, and then they come back together, and it's really sweet to see. And it feels like a movie, but it also still has the spirit of the show. It still has the exact same humor. It doesn't go too big. I actually remember when it came out, I was like 12, so I couldn't get into a 15 rated film, or certainly none of my friends could. So I went with my mom, because she was a big Inbetweeners fan too, so me and my mom went and watched the Inbetweeners movie in a packed screening of like 18-year-olds. And had a great time. The Inbetweeners 2. After the first one, I put on the second one, and you can really tell the difference. This one does go a bit big and does go a bit broad and doesn't feel like the show anymore. And watching them back to back really highlights, because it opens with like a spoof of Harry Potter, and I was like, oh right, this isn't really the Inbetweeners anymore, but it's still really, really funny. And there's still so many moments in it that feel so much like the Inbetweeners. Well, certainly, like, they're all still true to their character, even if the humor does get a bit big. Like the fact that in the water slide with Neil's shit slaps Will in the face, you know, that's horrific, but that's classic Inbetweeners. And the fact that they drive out into the outback with low petrol and be like, we're bound to come across a petrol station and get stranded in the outback. That's very much what those four boys would do. So it's still, it feels a lot bigger and broader and more movie-like than the series, but still so much fun. Good Fortune. I rewatched Good Fortune with my dad and my sister, and I liked it just as much the second time. It's just as funny, and some of the stuff with Keke Palmer's character, like, she is just there as an expositional mouthpiece to talk about the struggles of the 99%, the struggles of the working class, and that gets maybe a little bit on the nose, and it's also kind of a waste of her talents and her charms. But it's still so much fun to just... The central trio of Aziz Ansari, Seth Rogen, and Keanu Reeves are a joy to watch. Any combination of two of them or all three, they're so much fun to watch together as these characters on the just bouncing off each other, you know. And Aziz kind of squeezed every last drop of comedic juice out of this premise. There's no sort of squandered potential at all. It's like every idea you could have, like, well, what if the angel becomes human and he has to get a job, or what if any kind of what if you could come up with within this story. Aziz came up with it and put it in the movie. Roofman. I fucking loved Roofman. I thought it was so good. Channing Tatum was so charming in it. And I couldn't imagine anyone else playing that role and making the film work as well as he does, because he just has these innate charms, and the character is a pathological liar and a thief and a criminal and a fugitive, but you love him because you love Channing Tatum. And also because he's a nice guy. Like, in the opening scene when he's robbing a McDonald's and he's putting the staff in the freezer, one of them doesn't have a coat, and he gives them his coat because he doesn't want them to get cold. But it's an incredible true story, and I think the film mostly stuck to it. As it happened, they didn't embellish too much. Where Channing is this guy kind of strapped for cash, and he comes up with this MO to rob McDonald's, where he'll cut a hole in the roof, wait for the crew to come in the morning, and then lock them in the freezer while he takes the money. And he did that for like 50 McDonald's before he was caught. But then for each person, he only gets charged for one of these robberies, and for each person he locked in a freezer, it's another charge of felony kidnapping. And there's 3 people, and it's 15 years per person, so he gets 45 years. But then soon after getting incarcerated, he breaks out and goes and hides out at Toys R Us, and that's where like the bulk of the film takes place. And it was just such a wild story, and I couldn't believe it was almost all true, except for the fact that the woman he strikes up a relationship with while he's on the run, played brilliantly by Kirsten Dunst in the film, she didn't work at the Toys R Us. That was just a more convenient thing to streamline the story of the film. But if that's as far as they go in terms of like embellishing things, it's a pretty incredible story. And it's like funny, but it's Derek Cianfrance is the guy who did Place Beyond the Pines and Blue Valentine, and it has that kind of, he's very interested in human relationships and the flaws of human beings, and can we still love someone who's flawed and all this kind of stuff. And it does dig into all that stuff, but it's also just this wacky comic crime caper, and it's a ton of fun to watch. And like I say, like, Channing Tatum carries the fucking thing, and without him, it wouldn't work. Anora. I got Anora, the Criterion Blu-ray, and it's so good. It's so much fun. I mean, I love that whole section where the goon squad shows up and they have to go around New York looking for Vanya. That's like some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. But like the first half an hour is like a Cinderella story, and that's really beautiful. But also in this interesting kind of like transactional relationship-y kind of way. The whole film is so it's funny, and it's beautifully made, and it's sympathetic to all of its characters, and in the way that Sean Baker always is, where he's very humanistic and just like slice of life. And movies like Anora almost never win Best Picture, but you watch it and you're like, that was the best picture of that year. Bollock Conclave. High School Musical 3 senior year. This is I think the third one, as tends to be the case with trilogies, I think the third one's the weakest of the bunch. But it's still great, and Kenny Ortega, the director, makes full use of his the extra budget he gets for this one being for cinemas rather than for TV. And I actually remember going to the cinema when it came out with my sister, because it's some of the musical numbers, the one about prom, A Night to Remember, and the one about Sharpay, I want it all, I want it. The one about her ambitions, you know, how she's shooting for the stars, and you know, they both are staged on these beautiful revolving sets that it looks like La La Land, you know, it's gorgeous. Welcome to Derry. This is the prequel series set in the early 60s, I think. And I don't know, man. I like the opening scene where the kid is picked up by, there's like a kid hitchhiking, he gets picked up by this family who seem perfectly normal and nice, and they're saying, we'll drop you off at your parents' house. But then they leave the town, and he's like, dude, where are you going? Let me out. And he can't open the door, and the dad is just laughing at him. And then the kids are getting really creepy with him, and the boy looks at him and has like Pennywise eyes, and then the pregnant mom starts to give birth. And it's like this really creepy, it's almost a perfect little horror short. And then the demon comes out, and it's CGI, and it just looks goofy and cartoonish. And then the same could be said for a lot of things. There's like a scene with a lampshade made of human faces, and it looks terrifying until the mouths start to move, and then it's just like, oh, that looks fake. And that was the problem with the It films. There's a lot just like shitty CGI that makes it all feel fake, and like the Paul Bunyan statue running around swinging its axe around, like that just looks goofy. And I think the ensemble cast is a little bit overstuffed. I think maybe it'll all come together later on. I've been reviewing it week to week on Screen Rant, if you want to check them out. As I'm recording this, I've only seen the first episode. But I think the cast is overstuffed. I like the kids who are going looking for this kid who's gone missing, and because then it feels like the Losers Club looking for their missing friend. Like all the stuff with the army and that every time it cuts away to that, I feel like I'm watching a totally different show, you know. So it's got promise. It needs to focus though, and it needs to have less shit CGI. Hot Milk. This popped up on Mubi, came out earlier this year. Emma Mackey is this young woman, and Fiona Shaw is her wheelchair-bound mother who she's looking after. And and Vicky Creeps, I think her name is, Crepes, from Phantom Thread was in this as Emma Mackey's love interest. They had great chemistry. And the ending of this was great, which, spoiler alert, Emma Mackey gets so frustrated with her disabled mom looking after her, that she just drives her out into the street, parked her wheelchair in front of an oncoming truck, and leaves her to get hit and killed. And that was a great ending and a great payoff to all this pent-up frustration of having to deal with this, like, stubborn old lady. But the film itself was very kind of meandering up to that point. Where this character's very erratic, but we never kind of really see why, and you never really get a grasp on who she is. Emma Mackey's great, and she's game, and she kind of brings her all to the material she has, but it just feels like there's a few missing scenes to fill in some context on who this person is. Meet the Fockers. I watched Meet the Fockers after Meet the Parents, another childhood favorite. Because when I was a kid, the critics said Meet the Parents was much better than Meet the Fockers. They didn't like Meet the Fockers. But when I was a kid, I just loved them both equally. I thought they were both as great as each other. Little Fockers I didn't like, but Meet the Fockers is hilarious. They couldn't have cast Ben Stiller's parents better than Dustin Hoffman and Barbra Streisand. The movie doesn't work nearly as well if you cast anyone else in those roles, apart from if they've got Jerry Stiller. But they both have this believable chemistry with Ben Stiller that you believe he's their son, and that he's like, they're proud of him and he's horribly embarrassed by them. And they're both great foils for Robert De Niro, where he's like this very conservative, very staunchly kind of closed off, Jack Burns, not Robert De Niro, but Dustin Hoffman and Barbra Streisand are very free-spirited and sexually liberated, and just the complete opposite of Jack, and that's endlessly fun to watch. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. I did a video about this one, and I'm not a huge Springsteen fan, but I was really taken with this story of him, how he recorded Nebraska. How he just had some guy bring a home recording studio into his bedroom, and just recorded these rough takes of these very personal songs, and he was supposed to go and redo them with the band in a professional studio, but he just ends up releasing these tapes. That becomes the album, and I've since been listening to the album a lot, and I love it. But I thought that's a great story, and Jeremy Allen White is so fucking good as Springsteen. He's so seamlessly transforms into Springsteen. Jeremy Strong as John Landau was a fantastic performance as well. And it was interesting to see, he normally plays these horrible people, Roy Cohn or Kendall Roy, and John Landau's a good guy. He's like Bruce Springsteen's lifeline. It's just interesting to see Jeremy Strong as a good guy, and just as great in that role. But I think it was just let down by feeling the need to... It was almost like they thought the story of a guy recording an album in a bedroom wasn't interesting enough on its own, so they have to throw in this perfunctory love story. They have to throw in these flashbacks to his sad childhood with his mean dad. And it just all felt very rote and very, you know, tropey and cliched, and like, I've already seen that stuff in other biopics, and I've seen them done better in other biopics. Silicon Valley, been rewatching Silicon Valley, and it's just such a great fucking show. It's a spot-on satire of the tech industry. It's a great ensemble sitcom where all these great, hilarious actors with really distinctive, really funny characters all have great chemistry together. And it's also this, like, cautionary tale about, like, the foibles of success, where it's like, even if you have a game-changing invention, there's no guarantee that people are going to buy the product, or there's no guarantee that it will always belong to you, and you'll have corporate rivals, and you'll have copycats, and it's like everything that could possibly go wrong in the rise of Pied Piper goes wrong. And it's funny, and it's frustrating, and it's compelling storytelling. A House of Dynamite. I did a video about this, new Catherine Bigelow thriller about there's a nuke on the way to America, and what do we do? And there's a lot of, you know, is it real? Can we intercept it? And it was an interesting premise, but it basically, I said this in my review, it's like Dr. Strangelove minus the humor. It's like a serious version of Dr. Strangelove, and who wants to watch that? And the ending really dropped the ball. I was, something like this kind of race against time, and you got Chekhov's missile coming at the fucking United States. You need an epic ending. You need an ending that lives up to that race against time. And the ending of this, when it ended, I was like, what the fuck, that's it. I couldn't believe that was the ending. It feels like we're missing 10 minutes of movie. The Royal Hotel. This one, interesting little thriller. It's Julia Garner and Jessica Henwick are these tourists in Australia. They run out of money and they go and get a job at this pub in the middle of nowhere. And it was an interesting look at just like the life of a barmaid, and how, you know, the kind of casual sexism, the casual misogyny, and, you know, the constant sexual remarks, the constant, like, male customers trying to come on to you, and it didn't look fun. But it was an interesting movie to take that stuff that is very real and very relatable and very everyday, and put it in the context of this creepy psychological thriller. It's a really interesting choice, and it was I've never seen a movie like it. I've certainly never seen a movie that captured that so well, that captured what it's like to be a woman working at a bar and getting constantly harassed, and, you know, and how scary it is. Like, I don't know, it was I think maybe it struggled to stick the landing a bit with the ending, but I was really captivated by it the whole way. Alien Earth. I finally fucking finished this. I watched the first few episodes, did a video about the first few episodes, and how I was disappointed by it so far, but that I would stick it out to the end. And it was hard. It's taken me a long time to get to the end of this fucking thing. I finally finished it, and it never got any better. If anything, it got worse. It was fucking stupid. The Sidney Chandler robot character, like, speaks Xenomorph. She pets it. She does the Chris Pratt thing with the Velociraptors, where she holds out her hand, and the Xenomorph calms down and becomes, like, her pet, and then she can, like, command it to kill people for her. She does the clicking thing with the Xenomorph's mouth out of her mouth. It's like a Terminator when it's like, you know, asking about the dog. She just mimics its voice and gives it commands to kill people. It's fucking insane. Who thought that was a good idea? So yeah, I wasn't a fan of Alien Earth. I was so excited for it, and it was such a cool idea to bring the alien universe to Earth. But holy shit, did I hate this show. Fuck me. Alright, there, everything I watched in October. Let me know what you've been watching in the comments below, if there's some great stuff you think we should check out, or some terrible things we should avoid, like Alien Earth. And I'll catch you all at the end of November. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. Remember to like and subscribe and click on the little bell. And also seize the day and call your mom and be kind to yourself.
Rise and shine.
Bat an eyelash.
Good morning.
There are no hands on the clock.
Why?
Because they're not needed.
What time is it?
You know, I don't remember that part. All right, let's just not nitpick over the passwords.